Number 5, Infinity War. This barely eked out Civil War just because even though there's so much going on, it was so highly anticipated to see Thanos on screen with the Dark Order. Everyone is together. It is like the Avengers movie I always wanted. Everybody's there, villains. You got your big baddie like Thanos. Up until now, besides maybe Black Panther, I loved Killmonger. And Loki was always a good villain, but he always seemed to get taken down too easily. This was the first time in the MCU I could remember actually being like, they're going to have some difficulties. Because Thanos is a baller to begin with, and now he's got the Infinity Gauntlet, and we start the movie where he's already got half the gems, basically. And he takes out the Hulk with ease, beats the tar out of him. One of my favorite... The guy supposedly has undetermined strength, and Thanos just beat him to the ground with half the gems. You see that and you're like, what are these people going to do? Then he takes on potentially 75% of the Avengers, basically wins. He does. He wins. He literally takes on everybody. When he's on the planet with Stark and Spider-Man and all them, takes them all out. They almost get him. They should have got him, but then friggin' Quill does the whole thing where he gets mad and punched him in the head, and he lost Mantis lost control of him. But then he goes back down and he takes out Scarlet Witch and Vision and Captain America and Bucky and Falcon and Black Panther and War Machine, and the list goes on and on. All the Guardians of the Galaxy, Groot, Rocket, like literally like flicks them like da, 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 da. Captain America looks like he's gonna have a heart attack holding his fist, and Thanos is just like, yeah, this is a joke. Scarlet Witch, who is probably at that time the most powerful of all of them, literally barely could keep him at bay, and he just like brushes everyone off with ease. He is a intimidating force, and this CGI was amazingly well done. The battles were incredible. Everything was incredible. I absolutely love when Black Panther and Captain America, they're about to go to war and they storm Thanos's like army of aliens. When Captain America and Black Panther sprint ahead, that is crazy to watch. How they're just like running so fast and so far ahead of everybody else. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it. I am dying to see Endgame. They're so subtle and so vague with what is going on, which I love. We've already heard from Feige that the first all the trailers and stuff we've seen is like basically the first 20 minutes of Endgame. And it's a 3-hour plus movie we're being told right now. 3 hours plus. So we have no clue where they're going to go. We still haven't seen the Hulk. We still haven't seen Thanos. I have no clue where they're going. I hope we see Worldbreaker Hulk. I hope we see Thanos come back and Galactus and maybe Fantastic Four and the X-Men and everybody somehow incorporated into after credit scenes and everything else. I am hyped. But Infinity War was a great way to start it. I was insanely pleased with Infinity War. I almost struggled to put it at number 5, but there were just other movies that held such a higher esteem on my list. So sorry, guys, if that sounds crazy, but Infinity War, number 5. Number 4, Thor Ragnarok. Now, this one was one of the harder ones to figure out. Like, this and Infinity War. I was like, Infinity War's got to be better than Ragnarok because it's Infinity War. But on a personal level, yet again, now mind you, they're 4 and 5, so they're on the top 5 already. But Infinity War, amazing movie. As a movie as a whole, it is a cinematic masterpiece. Definitely like superior to Infinity War in that sense. Even though Ragnarok, there really is. It's a well-balanced movie, has everything, hence why it beat it. But the key factor here, which is basically my own personal opinion, is that they did like a spin off of like World War Hulk or Planet Hulk. So me being the Hulk fan that I am, hence why Incredible Hulk is also on this list with Edward Norton, I am a Hulk fan. They literally threw some of my favorite things about Hulk comics in general into this movie. Jeff Goldblum was in this movie, utterly hilarious. The whole planet, the Coliseum where they had like Beta Ray Bill, and the gladiator. I forget who else was on that mountain, but like they had so many little Easter eggs thrown here and there. Don't get me wrong, all of them do. Infinity War did as well. It was just my kind of movie. I understand that a lot of people say it was way too jokey. A lot of people think it was great because of it. It had like a Guardians of the Galaxy spin. Ironically, I didn't like Thor 1 and 2. If I had to do a full ranking, they'd be way at the bottom. Still great movies, don't get me wrong. Spoiler alerts if you didn't already know that. But the whole ending where Ragnarok actually happens, they have to sacrifice Asgard for the sake of like a ship full of their people surviving and stuff. It is crazy. Like watching Surtur like come up and like giant, and then the Hulk freak out. Then there's the giant wolf thing and Hela, and everything is just I don't know. All I know is personally I thought hard and long, and it was this or Infinity War back and forth 4 and 5, and Ragnarok is in my mind a better watch. Personally, a better watch. I enjoyed it more, mainly because of the whole theme of the Hulk. It was basically a Hulk movie, a buddy comedy with the Hulk and Thor. Thor, is not one of my favorite Avengers, don't mind him, but he's not one of my favorite. And Hulk, who is my favorite, who basically is the only one without a trilogy of the main guys. He's like the only one without his own series. So having him thrown in this and basically making the movie half about him was awesome, especially since he was so lacking in Infinity War. Another reason why Infinity War dropped to 5. He was just so lacking in that. You took one of my favorite characters out of the movie, basically. You gave me Bruce Banner. So, I mean, I don't mind him either, but you get what I mean. So, Ragnarok, solid number 4. Number 3. Winter Soldier, Captain America 2. This or Civil War, I don't even look at as a Captain America movie. I'm not even kidding. When I was making this list for a second, I was like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh shit, how do I not have a Captain America movie on here? But I have 2 out of the 3. It's just that they're so beyond just Captain America in these movies. Like this one specifically, I already talked about Civil War, so we don't need to, but this specifically, it's like basically Bucky's origin story. And it's basically half his movie. It's like almost like Captain America, except for the first one, never gets his own movie. Even in the first one, you could claim like it was dedicated more so to like Bucky in the first half and like his group in the second half. But this one is amazing. Amazing. It's always on everyone's list, but it's like almost like a self-contained like spy movie. I don't even know, but it is crazy good. The funny thing about this one is it is the only one of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the 21 of the Cinematic Universe. It's the only one I never saw in theaters. Not only did I not see this in theaters, but it was already like out on Blu-ray and DVD way long before I checked it out. It was one of those things where I wasn't a huge fan of the first Captain America. So when this came along, I was like, yeah, whatever. And at that point, they really hadn't fully embraced the whole cinematic universe yet. Granted, everything was tying into each other, but if you notice in the poster, it says it was April of 2014. That is almost 5 years ago. That's barely halfway to where they are now. So like, it wasn't nearly as embraced. It wasn't nearly as popular yet. It wasn't like, oh, you got to watch this to know this and blah, blah, blah. Now everything is interconnected. But this one was like one of the ones that kind of just drifted off my radar. Never really a Captain America fan in general as a character. Never a fan of the first movie, probably more so because of that. And then you have this gem, brings us Black Widow for the first time. I think she may have appeared in Iron Man 2 first, or this was, I'm not sure on the timeline, but she was in Iron Man 2. I'm not sure if it was before or after this, but it was close regardless. And she was phenomenal in it. Like, oh my God, great. She's still great, but Sam Jackson had probably his most predominant role in this one. They had basically Captain America looked like he went rogue, and it was crazy. It was great. You all know the movie. It was unlike any other Marvel movie. It was dark and like at points you weren't sure if Captain America would live through it, even though it's only part two. But it was like, and the whole secret behind Bucky from the first movie being this, like if you're a comic book fan, you knew and you picked up on it, and there was hints here and there. So clearly it wasn't the greatest surprise ever, but it was like very well done. It was very unlike most. It was a self-contained. It wasn't like all about knowing other movies and bringing other characters in. You could have seen just this movie and it would have made perfect sense. So Winter Soldier, number 3. Number 2, Iron Man. Iron Man 1 was such an amazing movie in so many different ways that it has to be up at number 2. It started the whole MCU, and it was literally such a risk. I can't even imagine taking this risk. It was just like unprecedented that they took a character that like a lot of people never even heard of. Even coming from comic book fans such as myself, there was a show I saw where they were like, where would you have ranked Iron Man? In the comic book world back before the movies, Iron Man was like maybe B. I would say he was level, like if you're going A, B, C, D, E or whatever, he would be like a B tier, maybe even a C tier character. He was definitely not A tier, put it that way. He was not like top tier. He was like debatably B, solid B, and then sometimes maybe even a C. But like to spend, I think their budget was like 150 million. It was literally like 150 million. Now that makes sense because they get their money back. But to spend 150 million dollars on a movie that you have no clue if it will succeed, who no one is even heard of or knows anything about the character. Like, they already know that they tried with Hulk, and Hulk is definitely more known than Iron Man. He was in more comics and more cartoons. He had his own movies, several movies, television series, and look at Ang Lee's Hulk failed. So they already are riding on the fact that, like, all right, we already know that like big name Marvel characters can fail. Now, they also had a lot of people hating on the movie itself for the Ang Lee's Hulk, but just to take that kind of risk blows my mind. But for it to work to the magnitude that it did, now don't get me wrong, obviously it's on the list because it is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is just like such, and there's nothing you needed to know going in. It's a self-contained story. You didn't know there was anything coming after it. Like, you went into this movie like, I want to see Robert Downey Jr. sink into a hole and build a suit that makes him become like the baddest motherfucker ever. Like, I just like, the whole thing is just like mind-blowing that they would even, that someone funded this project. But I'm happy they did because it is like literally one of the greatest underdog stories ever, that this movie turned into what Endgame will end this whole 21 movie, or 22, that'll be the 22nd MCU movie starting with Iron Man. All that, like, that will all wrap up because they took this risk and it panned out. That blows my mind. We're not even talking about how good a movie it is. Robert Downey Jr. is like literally is Tony Stark. He is one of the greatest casted characters on film. Way better than like Professor X, Patrick Stewart, great. Everything. Like, I've seen so many great castings in my life, but I literally look at Robert Downey Jr. as, look, I am an Iron Man fan. Clearly, I've went to movie premieres and everything with this suit on. I have a full helmet with gloves that make sounds and everything. Just can't find them right now, and I didn't feel like looking too long. But I had this in my closet. But, oh my God, everything about it. The fight, right off the bat when he launches all the missiles in the air and then, like, he gets trapped in the cave. It is like a real Survivor story. Like he really was captured and you really wanted him to succeed. And then he builds this low-tech Iron Man suit, but still manages to like slaughter like dozens of people and escape for the prison. Then he creates better and better technology over the course of the movies and stuff. Oh, Iron Man is the king. Definitely my favorite Avenger. Iron Man right here. Number 1 Avenger. I told you my list before. Punisher was number 4. Hulk, number 3. Iron Man, second favorite Marvel character in the whole universe. Iron Man, baddest motherfucker in the Avengers, top tier now. No longer tier B. He will forever be top tier now. Number 2, Iron Man. Number 1, Logan. Now, this has made lots of people's top 10. Many people I know is number 1 comic book movie, not just, and it is my number 1 comic book movie. It's on the number 1 Marvel list, but it is my number 1 comic book movie. It may even break my top 10 of all time. This movie is in a league of its own. It's not even close. When you talk top 10 lists, you got to think sometimes what would be your number 1. On a comic book movie list, on a Marvel movie list, on anything related to the topic of comic books, this is hands down, I don't even have to think about it. I have watched this movie. This was the one when I was talking Punisher, where I said there's only one other movie, and I said comic book character, and there's only one other character. It is this movie I've watched more than any other. This is my number 1 comic book character. And even if had this movie not existed, Wolverine is still my favorite comic book character of all time. I absolutely love the character of Wolverine. It's a lot of people's favorites, but I have dug him forever. Since I was a little kid, Wolverine, hands down, favorite character. Wolverine was awesome in The Wolverine, and he was awesome in X-Men Future Past, and he was awesome in everything else, X2 and stuff like that. He was phenomenal. He still wouldn't have made my list. This movie just blew the doors off of everything I ever imagined a comic book movie could be. It was like a futuristic dystopian movie. It was like a noir type movie. It was like almost like a reverse Boy and His Dog kind of movie, because the girl with Wolverine, it was like so many things in one. It was like it took a character you thought was invincible and just beat him down to like nothing. He is a limo driver, barely scraping by. He is riddled with like disease. His body is like toxified now because of all the adamantium, I believe, going through his body. There's other ways that it could be interpreted, but the way I interpreted it was he was slowly dying from all the experiments and stuff. It's hundreds of years he has now lived. How sad was Professor X? They even got Patrick Stewart to come back one last time, and it was so sad watching what happened, like how a man's mind could go from so strong to like literally he just like had no control. And when he loses control, he will kill. They basically led you to believe he basically not murdered, because murder is with intent, but unintentionally killed off the mutant race by like exploding their minds, or like just basically shutting them down mentally. He could like literally at the snap, he could have an episode and like literally create destruction on a mass level. It is just like a sad future of what could be. They really kept this movie under wraps. I was shocked. Like, I remember I watched it opening night. I watched it on a Thursday, first showtime in the theaters, not knowing how great this movie would be. Like, spoiler alert, when the second Wolverine comes in and murders Professor X, you do not see, there are double surprises. You are now like, first you're thinking Wolverine lost his shit and killed Professor X. You are now accepting the fact that Professor X is dead to this world. He is not coming back from what just happened. Then you realize that it wasn't Wolverine, that there is now 2 Wolverines, and one is like a battered old man version of what he was, and what he was is now superior. Obviously, he's far superior because they have perfected on it. So you have a battered old version of what is now a superior version fighting itself after he just killed Professor X, and then he murders the whole family. It is just so much you don't see coming. It is violent. It is dark. Like when he goes berserker rage, starts dicing people up and stuff. It is a seriously violent, bloody movie, but not violent and bloody for the sake of gore. It is to give us what we always wanted, but at the same token, show us like the true side of Wolverine for the first time, like really unleash the character. we don't know if he's going to make it. As far as I remember, this was kept pretty under wraps. Up until the release, I don't think we knew. I mean, even if you wanted to know, I don't think you knew unless you were a critic and you had an early viewing. But I don't recall there being any slip-ups where you knew whether he lived or died. And I remember sitting through this movie and being like, would they really kill him? Is he really, like we're doing right now? The reason I made this video is because we are in 1 month about to see the conclusion to the MCU, that they had the balls to kill off Wolverine. They don't just kill him, he kills himself, so to speak. The better, perfected, newest version of him kills himself, and he probably could have won or ran away and healed up and come back guns a-blazing and won, but he basically like threw in the towel for the sake of the children. So he, through all these movies, he was always for himself. He only cared about himself. And now it's like he gave the ultimate sacrifice for the next generation of mutants, because Professor X is now dead. His mind can't hurt them anymore. I'm willing to bet mutants wouldn't rebuild because maybe Professor X kept having episodes or something. Regardless, I took the ending as Wolverine is sacrificing himself for the greater good. Professor X is dead. Now he's dead. The new generation must carry on, and they'll go to like the area they were going where they will be safe. And it's just so sad the whole way it breaks down. It is the only comic book movie I could recall. And I don't get emotional. I mean, I get emotional. You guys know me. I scream and yell and I rant and I rave. I mean, everybody cries. But I don't lose my shit like quick. Like, it takes a lot for me to shed a tear. I understand this is fictional stuff. So like, it's like if it was real stuff like this was really happening, like, yes, it would get more emotion out of me. But like, I could kind of separate the two. This movie had me on such a personal level and seemed so real. It is the one movie I could honestly say I remember crying at. Like, not like bawling my eyes out, but like I remember shedding a tear at Logan. And I literally went with a group of, I kid you not, when I go to premieres, I go with like 30, 40 people. Like almost every MCU movie in phase 3 and 4, once they got hyped up, I'd get crowds of 30 plus to go. I'll record when we go to Endgame, I'll do a recording video and show you the crowd I pull. But I go with like 30 friends and I rent the whole theater and like they all come and everything. We have like a spectacle of it. I was with like 30 of my friends and I was like, I'm about to freaking cry at a Wolverine movie. And I remember, yoink, a tear. Horribly sad. And then the girl takes the cross and makes the X out of it. Oh my God. Total tearjerker of a comic book movie at the end. But had to be my favorite, guys. Number 1, Logan. My honorable mentions, the MCU ones would have fit into the gaps here. So everything would have slid down. Honestly, from here to I think 7 was all MCU except for this. So everything else would just slide down. And then the honorable mentions was kind of fit in where 7, 8, and 9 went. So it's not, you pretty much could get the gist of where the list would be if it was just MCU. There was only 3 non-MCU movies on the list. But Logan, hands down, only one I didn't need to think about. When I made this list, Logan, number 1. So you guys, let me know what you think. Write in the comments down below. Let me know what your top 10 is. Let me know if you agree with mine or you think I'm insane or you understand that I'm from a generation. I basically didn't start getting this till I was in my late 20s. I started getting MCU stuff. So coming from a generation like mine, I had to put some of my favorites on the list. You guys tell me what you think. Comments down below. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.